Oh, we're doing it.
Hi guys.
We're live now, so I'll start to let people know about it. Hey y'all, we're going to start now. If y'all could sit down. And time to be quiet. Come on in.
Oh, people.
Come inside. And also sit down. Shall we just go?
All right, let's let everybody see that. Right. And I guess the good news is if you want to ask questions.
Yeah, we can see them. Can y'all sit down? We're going to start. Please. I'd appreciate it. Is that a no? What? We're trying to start.
Everybody, we're gonna get started now.
Please sit down. Maybe, okay, they're not gonna sit down. We'll just start.
All right.
Y'all can enjoy standing.
Thank you all for putting up with us while we got the live stream set up. My name is Kyle Dean. I'm the Chief Operating Officer of the Amusement Park Digital Entertainment. We're super stoked to host you guys. Dreamcast is personally my favorite console, so I am personally very excited to launch this talk. There's a lot of different ways you can support the museum as a 501c3 nonprofit. We take all of your console, video game donations. Anything unique you have would be awesome too. We have yearly memberships available for $50. You can come in and play anytime you want. We also do the daily memberships for $10, and we're always looking for any help we can get on donations or any other type of help you can offer. We're really excited to have you guys. So let's turn it over to Heather. Oh, I also wanted to thank Anders Seibel, who set up the Dreamcast exhibit out front, and Chris Wolf for handling our beer for us. Yes, thank you.
All right. Hello, everyone. I'm Brandon Sheffield. I did not work on the Dreamcast, but I'm here because I'm a former journalist, and so I've interviewed a lot of people before. And we've got Heather here, who was the PR face of the Dreamcast for the duration of its life. It gleamed and glittered during its brief years. I was a big Dreamcast fan myself. I actually got to play it in 1998 because my stepmother had a friend going to Japan around the time of the launch, and I saved up a bunch of money. I was still in high school, and I was able to get a Dreamcast and play Sonic Adventure in December 1998 and amaze all my friends. And that memory of like Sonic running toward the screen while the orca is smashing up the bridge behind you was like, the future is here. So please introduce yourself, what you did then and what you're doing now.
Yes, so my name is Heather Hawkins, and I was, my official title was Manager of Marketing Communications for Sega of America Dreamcast, Inc. The nerds in the room will remember that Sega of America changed its name officially to Sega of America Dreamcast Inc. a little bit before the launch of Dreamcast, and afterwards. On my business card, though, my title was Manager of Enthusiast Press Relations. So my job at Sega was really to be the voice and face of Dreamcast to the enthusiast media. So that included all of the print publications, that included the official Dreamcast magazine, and it included pretty much the top 5, your IGNs and your GameSpots of the online media. And
can you talk about how you came to join?
Yeah, absolutely. It was a long and winding road. So let's see. I was a radio personality in Santa Rosa, California, making less than minimum wage to drive up there and be in radio. And there was a fax. Remember those? There was a fax sheet of paper in the college radio station that said there is some company that is hiring an intern that knows all about radio. And it was a paid internship, and it paid $1,500 a month. So I was like, oh my God, that's like retirement money. That's where I'm headed. So those of you who knew me at the time, blue-haired nose ring, walk into a PR agency south of Market, San Francisco, a world of bleach blonde hair, Kate Spade bags, Steve Madden pumps. And I interviewed for this internship. It turns out it was Access Communications, which was Sega's PR agency at the time. And I took that job, quickly, jumped into the Sega account as well as a bunch of others. This was in 1997, 98. So this was Saturn Netlink. Fun job, that, promoting Saturn and Netlink to people. We had one unit that we had to ship out every time we wanted somebody to review a video game on Saturn. We only had one review unit. We had to ship out the Saturn to them and stock them to get it back from them because there was only one of them. And we were trying to place radio promotions for Sega Saturn, and radio stations would be like, does anybody have a Sega Saturn? What good is it going to do us to give away a Sega Saturn video game? So we had to come up with extras to a game a day. Then somebody actually gets a Saturn at the end. I'm sure those people are still counting their blessings that they won a Sega Saturn.
I love the Saturn. So there's one of us.
There's one person who loves it. Actually, I'm sure we'll get to this later, but some of the best video gaming experiences of my life were on Sega Saturn. Yeah. So we could talk about that. Let's come back for the anniversary of Sega Saturn, if anybody knows when that was.
Oh, absolutely.
And so I was there at the agency through the initial announcements around Dreamcast, some fun stories there. Then I went to IDOS Interactive for exactly 3 months, which ironically is exactly the amount of time that Sega could not come and get me without having to pay that agency to, poach me from them. And then Charlie Belfield said, I want that girl. That girl needs to come and be the voice and face of Sega Dreamcast. So I started at Sega right after E3 in I guess it was 1999. So I came on board probably in June for the September launch.
Did the blue hair help you in?
Oh yeah,
getting into the Sega's good graces? Yeah.
In fact, I believe Charlie's actual words to my vice presidents at Access was, "What happened to that blue-haired girl? I need her to come." So the most productive years of my career were probably. I want to say it's my work skills. My impeccable media relations skills, but being memorable helps too.
And leading up to the launch of the Dreamcast, how much information did you have? What didn't you know?
What didn't we know? So I was at.
Because Sega Japan and Sega America always had somewhat of a contentious relationship. There was a push and pull everywhere. So I wondered to what extent they were like, this is everything we want to do, or to what extent they were like, here's a Dreamcast, promote it, please.
Yeah. So I still remember walking into Access Communications the morning that we had gotten, I think it was another fax. Faxes were kind of how we did things back then. And I remember Dave Carricker at Access Communications looking at this piece of paper that basically said, we have decided the name shall be Dreamcast, and here's the logo. And we were all just like we go from Katana to like Dreamcast. And so we basically spent the next probably 24 hours, you know, brainstorming new names and saying, hey, that's the cooking.com logo. And like pulling up all of these things to send back to them to just say, you know, we really would suggest a different name. You know, I think that our lead was let's stick with Katana.
What were some of those other names that you thought of, if you can recall?
I think it was pretty much probably just Katana.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the other one that sticks out to me. And I know, I mean, this is how the relationship went, right? I think this, you know, I'm not telling any tales, telling the story, but, you know, we sent this really thoughtful email that said, hey, we would really just suggest for the American market that, you know, you consider a different name, blah, blah, blah. We got an email back that said, we feel as though you have dragged our daughters into the streets of the village, stripped them naked, and raped them in front of the entire town.
Well,
And we're like, okay then, you know, Dreamcast it is. But, you know, spoiler alert, later in my career, I also told Maroon 5 that they had to change their name. So maybe naming is not my forte.
So what was the overarching strategy leading up to 99.99?
So
Big question, but
yeah. Well, I mean, and it has a pretty specific answer. You know, we knew that we had this generation of gamers that had been raised on Sega and that loved Sega and that still had, you know, the blue blood running. And we knew that we needed to rally them on our behalf. We needed to kind of reignite that spark in them. And so I think that's a big part of the reason why I was brought to Sega, was to really fly that flag for them, to speak to them in their language, to kind of be the intermediary between Sega and that community. You know, you talk about influencer marketing, or you talk about word of mouth marketing, you talk about all these things that are really big right now. Back then they were not big, but I feel like we kind of were ahead of our time in knowing that that's what we needed to do. So, you know, we had street teams, and remember, you guys, we were scrappy. Like, we did not have huge marketing budgets.
How many of you were there at that time on the PR team?
On the PR team at the time, it was myself, Charlie Belfield, and Terry Higgins. Myself, Charlie, Terry Higgins. And then we had a larger team at the agency.
Right.
And then a little bit after, another woman named Gwendolyn Marker joined us on the PR team. But in-house, that was it. You know, Uber just laid off 400 PR and marketing people from their, how do you have 400 PR and marketing people? So back in the day, we had street teams going out with chalk and drawing swirls places where gamers might see them, because we wanted, you know, nothing else in it. We wanted them to see that. We wanted them to be like, this is a secret message just for me. I know what this means. Nobody else knows what it means, so that they could kind of feel part of it and they could feel seen. I think those iconic ads that we still remember, the swirl-shaped clouds and the hurricane and the swirl in the eyeball, and just really telescoping to them, this is for you. This isn't for your mom. This isn't for, you know, your out-of-the-loop friend. This is really for you.
Yeah, and in 1999, you could really feel that the launch was coming. So those street teams actually did, like, they did their work, and those all those commercials and everything. It's the first launch that I can remember being like prepared that something was going to come. So it was pretty impressive to me anyway. And then how did it feel when all that stuff actually paid off? Because it did, right? The launch was pretty huge.
Yeah. No, I mean, it was amazing. You know, I still get chills thinking about that time. Never before and never since have I had another team experience like that where everyone, you know, in the company was aligned, like not a single bonding by bitching. You know, we've all been in companies. We know that that's usually what happens. There was none of that. I mean, that team was there. And you have to remember that this was .com, you know, first time around. We were right down the street from pets.com. Everybody else was taking jobs because there was a golden parachute at the end. There was, you know, stock options. There were bonuses. We had none of that. And if any of y'all had that, do not tell me, because I did not have that. You know, we were there because we believed in it. And we were there, you know, we didn't have to go on ropes courses. We didn't have to do trust falls. There was no team building exercise. The team building exercise was the mission that we were on. And so I think what we did in the United States was absolutely astounding. I mean, we had the biggest 24 hours of retail history, beating out Star Wars Phantom Menace. We sold 1 million units within the first month. I think we reclaimed like more than a third of the US video game market by that Christmas. And to realize that we had started from down here, right? So the delta was astounding. I mean, we had burned people like what, 2-3 times, and we still got them to come back.
Yeah. People love Sega. I mean, if they were to try to do a console again right now, people would be ready. So where did the It's Thinking come from? I just remembered that last night.
Yeah. It's Thinking was
and also just as an aside, why were there so many whispery ads at that time? Like was It's Thinking the first one? But there was this era like starting in the early 2000s where it was just like let's just whisper it.
Yeah. I don't know. And it's funny too because I flash back to a memory of Peter Moore was talking to the media. It was like, my God, he was on like CNN or something huge. And he was like, and you know, we're literally reaching through the television into children's bedrooms and touching them. We're like, Peter, no. And as soon as he, you know, he turned away from the thing, he's like, he totally realized what he had done. So It's Thinking, I think that tracks back to Peter, but probably it was Peter in concert with Footcon Belding, which was our ad agency at the time, which was a great creative agency. You know, Peter was really adamant that we needed to bring back the Sega Screen. You remember Sega Screen came back for a while. And the disgusting ad of the people in the hot tub. And yeah, we had some weird ass ads.
Yeah, well, we could get into that right now because there was like Sega was really on the edge of the extreme marketing where like in the 90s, they would be like, you're an idiot, you should buy this, you're stupid, which was very strange, but it was like this edgy kind of thing that people liked. And then over time it would be like, oh, we're just gonna insult somebody else. There was always some kind of like weird edginess, and then there was this sort of gradual transition from that kind of edgy marketing into the kind of Vans tour kind of edgy marketing, where it's like, let's sponsor Lollapalooza or whatever. Not that y'all did that, but you know there was.
We did Work Tour. Right. We had the Mobile Assault Tour, which was this decked out truck, military style truck, followed Limp Bizkit around. Who remembers Limp Bizkit? Was Limp Bizkit singing it? All right, sorry, my friend. Good to see you, by the way.
Apparently that was a SegaNet tour.
It was a SegaNet tour. Who remembers SegaNet? So, and then, you know, on the PR more scrappy guerrilla side, we also did, you know, PlayStation has a big golf tournament where all the Phil Harrison and all the, you know, hoity-toities go to. We hired a biplane with somebody in a Sonic costume. Chase, who a lot of you guys probably know from his time at Twitch, was also on our agency team at Access, and he went and gave a ball boy like $50 to change all the balls at the golf tournament into Dreamcast balls. We had the truck that we hired at the launch of PlayStation 2. I don't know if you guys remember, they had some pretty major problems with the launch of PlayStation 2. And we hired the truck with, remember the redheaded kid sticking his tongue out from the ads? We had it going around the Metreon saying, sorry about your launch problems. And it's like, literally, I think we sent somebody down to like Bayview to find a truck and then had like the dazzle of the day make this banner. I mean, it was all very scrappy. It was not high polish. It wasn't intended to be high polish, and I think that's why people loved us so much.
Well, yeah, it's great because you could be like, I've got an idea, and then that idea would be executed. And it also reminds me of we're about to get into talking about developers, and Kenji Ino, when he brought D to the Saturn, he announced it at a Sony press conference. The golf tournament reminds me, like so he was supposed to bring D Enemy Zero. He was supposed to bring Enemy Zero to the PlayStation, but he went to the Sony conference. They had like upset him about something that he wanted to do that they weren't going to allow.
Yeah,
and then
he was somewhat upsettable.
Yes, he was very upsettable, and so he went to their press conference and played a video in which the PlayStation logo morphed into the Saturn logo, and he was like, I'm putting it on Saturn, and then left the podium.
That's awesome. I've never heard that story.
If you've got any stories about Kenji, we can start with there because he was quite the character. I've heard a lot of good and bad stories about him.
Yeah. So Kenji Ino is no longer with us, so we will share all the good stories. Yes. So in my time at Access, Enemy Zero actually holds the record for the first video game I've ever played start to finish. If you remember Enemy Zero, it was really kind of different for its time because instead of seeing the enemy, you could only hear the enemy, so you had to track it. And I remember sitting with Ino-san in a conference room at Sega and having him describe the game that would go on to become, was it True Sound?
Real Sound.
Real Sound. And he was just so passionate, and he was just talking, a really passionate guy. And he had an interpreter there with him, and everybody in the room was kind of like, "Are you understanding this? Like, should we have the interpreter jumping? I'm sure I'm getting it." And it was one of those moments. So, my career, I now have a specialty in transformative technology, which is the application of technology to, mental health, happiness, well-being. And Ino-san was one of those people who was ahead of the curve as far as that goes, really wanting blind people to be able to play a video game or figuring out how to make these different sensory experiences that are emotional, but that impact you in a way that's far beyond just sitting down and playing a video game. And when you talk to him, he was an absolute visionary, whereas anybody else would be like, and it's going to be really entertaining, and here's how all the pieces come together, and this is the licensing opportunities or the way that it becomes a franchise. And he was just basically like, I'm going to create this weird ass thing, because I feel a call and a drive to do it. And my understanding from people who knew him on a personal level was that he was one of the most amazing people to know personally, just, really caring and empathetic in that way that, I don't want to say would be rare for somebody, a gamer, a game developer of that caliber. But my understanding is he was just an astounding person.
Yeah, like a couple more stories about him. He, with Enemy Zero, there was an ending that Sega wanted him to get rid of that was controversial, and so he sent them. He like kicked and screamed for a while, but then he sent them a gold master, and they were like, okay, like with that cut. But then he was like, oh no, there's a game-breaking bug in it, which there was. I'm gonna fly a new gold master over to you, and on the plane he swapped it with the one that had his correct ending, and it was too late to go back. They didn't have time to do any QA. He was like, I just fixed this one bug, and so that was how he got his thing in there, and that's why it has like an adults only rating or whatever crazy rating.
Oh,
Yeah.
cool.
He had a lot going on, and with the original Z, if you paid a bunch of money, if you just bought this one for like $2,000, I think there was only one copy. It would come with all this extra stuff, and he would deliver it to you in a truck. And so because he always wanted to have that experience of directly interfacing with the consumer, because you would give it to the store, and the store would sell it. You never get to see their face, so you wanted to be able to sell one to somebody.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, that's pretty fun. Yuji Naka, how about that fella? So he started Mr. Sonic by that time. He was taking control of Sonic Team, as I understand. So, how was working with him during the Dreamcast era?
He was down to earth, approachable, but also kind of protected during that time. I think he had definitely gotten to the point where he was, the voice and the face of Sonic. He was, I believe that he held a role in Sega that was beyond just, so like Greg Thomas, Visual Concepts actually held a role inside Sega as well during this time as head basically of game development. And I feel like Nakasana also held some sort of role in Sega of Japan that put him kind of at that upper echelon. So my interactions with him were always good, maybe a little bit distant. His team was amazing though, as far as just personable, willing to talk to people. I'm trying to think of which developers. So we had a lot of problems on the PR side, and maybe I shouldn't say the word problems, but because the media is totally different in Japan, right? And so you can sit down with media in Japan and you can say, I am showing you Sonic's haired big sister, and then you can say, don't tell anybody about it, don't show anybody. And in Japan, they have to, they don't have the same kind of freedom of the press. And I remember many times with the Sonic team sitting down in meetings in Japan and having them be like, I'm just going to show you. And I'm like jumping across the table and be like, no, like you can't do that. And then say, here's this totally awesome thing that you cannot write about, cannot talk about, cannot tell anyone that you saw. It's just not the way that it works.
Sonic Team at that time, they had sort of a degree of autonomy that was almost outside of Sega Japan in a way. They were able to figure out what kinds of games they wanted to make and just go for it, which was a sort of like that Dreamcast era. There was a kind of freedom that you could feel from some of these games, even though they were like working 28 hours a day or whatever. Like some of those games, you just felt, wow, this is something new. And so I don't know, maybe his protected status helped them in some way.
Yeah.
So Tetsuya Mizuguchi, he was the producer of Space Channel 5 as well as Rez, and you mostly interacted with him on the Space Channel 5.
I interacted with him on Space Channel 5. I was laid off in the big group in March of 2001. So my interaction with Sega actually stopped before I actually got to see Rez in action. I heard Mizuguchi-san talk about the game and describe it to people. He and I bonded a little bit over electronic music, and things of that nature. And I remember one particular trip to Japan where I took a bunch of editors to their studio, and he was like, "I'm going someplace with these editors. We'll see you tomorrow morning." I show up the next morning to everybody just like, and he had shown them all Res, and I think shown them a really good time in Tokyo that night as well. And that was just who he was, you know. I know he was really close with a lot of video game editors, and you know, Res having the electronic music component that it did, I think was really near and dear to his heart. Space Channel 5 definitely had that influence in it as well. And E3 that year, I remember we had the biggest stage show possible. We had Dancing Ooh La La and all the little robots, I forget what their names were. We had rollerbladers for Jet Set Radio, Jet Prime Radio. So Space Channel 5 actually brought me.
Nice. Were they the Melodians that were
Melodians, yeah, the Melodians.
Right. Yeah, Mizuguchi, he's got an interesting career because he started with Sega, and I just saw him do a talk about this in Croatia. And his first project was, he's like, I'm gonna take 2 Game Gear screens in like 1994, and I'm gonna make a VR headset, and that's that's what I'm gonna do. He was always like, how can I integrate video games into the body somehow? And that's where like the Res Trance Vibrator came from, which eventually was on the PS2 and didn't come out on the Dreamcast. But
I should reconnect with him and see if he's still working on that kind of transformer.
Yeah, he absolutely is. Yeah. I'll connect you later.
Awesome.
But yeah, Space Jam 5, they, you know, Ooh La La sort of became a mascot of sorts for the Dreamcast, and right now they're actually making Space Channel 5 VR with about half of the original team.
Oh, cool.
And I went and visited the offices in February, and the lead programmer, I was talking to him for a while, and I was like, "Oh, I noticed something under your desk." He had a Dreamcast plugged in to like compare data as quickly as possible, which was really nice to see.
Yeah.
Playing Space Channel 5 VR, the new one, is kind of odd because you're standing right next to Ooh La La. So you're not, like, I guess you were always her camera person or something like that, but now you're standing right next to her, and she's shorter than I thought.
She is very short because at the 10-year anniversary, I donated it to my friend who has kind of basically a video game museum in his attic. Hi, Larry, if you end up watching this. I had a life-size Ooh La La standee, and she was like a midget. I mean, she was like,
So the reason I always thought she was tall, as I communicated to the team, is because the camera was always kind of low on her.
Yeah, well, and those shoes. I mean, those shoes add some height.
And the producer, who was the one, she was like, "Oh yeah, it was always right on the panty edge."
I don't doubt it.
I didn't say that.
Japanese game developers. Yeah. What you gonna do?
But how was it that, was it your idea, or like your team's idea, to push Ooh La La as kind of a mascot of sorts for the Dreamcast, or did that happen organically, or what was that about?
You know, I feel like it was just so. Is Games with Character us, or is Games with Character somebody else? Games with Character was us, right? When I taking people around.
You know, I don't remember.
Or no, you know what? My gosh, that might be IDOS. Like.
Yeah, no, that's right. Yeah, like,
these brain cells have been through a thing. You were around in '99. I think that there were a couple of things going on, you know, that at the time, girls in gaming, like this was a hot topic, and who's going to be that second kind of more modern type of a mascot. So I think it was a natural fit just with her, you know, bright coloring and recognizability and all that kind of stuff.
She was great for game covers too. I mean, like
magazine covers. Yeah, absolutely. Just like that punchy, instantly recognizable. I don't know that too many people, I mean, you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't know that too many people outside of really a Dreamcast circle would immediately look at her and know who she was or know what her story is.
I do feel like the Dreamcast's legacy has expanded after the fact. I was just talking to Kathy Astromoff, who she was like a third party development.
Yeah. Kathy Schoback.
She was Kathy Schoback at that time, about her experiences with the Dreamcast, and she was saying if everybody who came up to me and told me that they loved the Dreamcast and owned one actually did and actually bought games for it, then there would have been no problems with the Dreamcast.
Well, you know what though? I will argue that there were no problems with Dreamcast in the United States.
Yeah.
Like if we were an island unto ourselves, we kicked ass.
Yeah.
And if it had just been us, awesome. Unfortunately, Japan and Europe bringing the rest of us down.
They weren't holding up their end of the bargain.
You guys gotta, and it's. I was thinking about this on the way here. Is Japan having? Did they have an event? Right. Last November. Is Europe gonna have any kind of an event in a month? I think it was a month after us. What happened in the United States, I think, was special. And when you get to those questions of like, what could have been done differently? What would you have done differently? What would you have changed? In the United States, we did what we were told, what we set out to do. I don't think that there's a single person on the team who feels like we didn't do something we could have done or should have done. Does everybody kind of have theories about, stuff that could have been leveraged better? Sure. But if it was just us, we would have been fine.
Yeah, I think so. The only thing that I would have gone back in time to change is to use the same copy protection that the Saturn had, because that didn't get broken until like last year.
Oh, wow.
So, because, I had a Dreamcast at this point during college, and everyone had a Dreamcast and a big spindle full of CDRs.
Ah.
So, that was a big issue. Money wise was the software wasn't selling as well as the hardware, because like if the Dreamcast had somehow been games as a service way in advance, it would have been gangbusters.
Yeah.
But
so how did that work there? Because Dreamcast was on a GD-ROM.
Yeah, but
was
most games didn't use the full capacity, or you could just cut out the videos, like just delete the video file, and then you wouldn't get any of the cutscenes, and then it would fit on a CD-ROM, and then you just plug it in there. Yeah, unfortunately. Yeah.
You guys are too technical for me. But I mean, that's another thing about Sega, right? The Sega gamers are scrappy, Sega gamers are smart, Sega gamers are the kind of people who would figure that kind of thing out. So,
we figured out how to bankrupt Sega.
Thanks, guys. Thanks.
No problem. Yu Suzuki. So I've met him a couple times myself. Now he's very much in a like kindly old man phase. I don't know how much he was like that at the time. He played a game of mine that was similar to, very inspired by Outrun, I should say. And I asked him what he thought of it, and he said he played it for 5 minutes and he gave it back, and he's like, "It's not bad."
Yeah, that's you.
And so I put that as like a box quote on the game. Like,
that's awesome.
It's not bad. Yu Suzuki.
I mean, he was diminutive, humble, few words. I can just picture him standing there in that leather jacket that he always wore. And, again, he always had kind of his posse with him, so not a lot of time solo with him. But my God, like the first time that we saw Shenmue, was actually in the proof of concept videos that we showed at E3 behind closed doors the first year that we were talking to people about Dreamcast. And we didn't say what it was at the time. It was Shenmue was in there, Loigan was in there, Sonic Adventure was in there, the famous bathtub demo that was a bunch of rubber ducks floating in a in a bathtub and, just showing how it all rendered. I think the Shenmue thing was like hundreds of warriors or something on a hillside, in perfect unison, and nobody believed that it was gameplay footage. So that game, I spent so much time driving that damn forklift around that dock trying to get to the next thing. But it's like, again, future leading, predictive of where things would be going. Who would have thought that you would want to do that? And now how much time have you been riding that damn horse around the Outback in Red Dead Redemption? Right. And like, now it's just like a thing that you understand.
Yeah, full reactive eyes entertainment was the,
I forgot about that.
I remember seeing seeing that video that got showed around. This is before there was like a YouTube or anything. We all had to like go to a website. And there was that shot with like the bird flying through the valley, and you saw what's her name? Whose name I forget, the lady. And like she has a single tear or whatever, and it's like, is this a video game? Is this real?
Yeah.
It was a really impressive moment, and well, it cost $80 million. So,
it better be
pretty impressive.
Yeah. I was telling you in our email exchange that I think the moment for me was I walked into a room at Sega and somebody had NFL 2K on. And I walked in, I didn't think much of it. I literally just walked in, glanced, assumed somebody was just watching a football game. Like the chest and and they're like, no, this is the game. What? This is the actual, what the crap are you telling me right now? That is the moment that I realized the leap that we were making. Like, if you talk about going into that uncanny valley kind of realm, it was, I know people want to say it was only a half generation. It was not. Like, that was.
It was huge.
Yeah, it was massive.
Yeah, for me, it was like when I played it in 1998. I was just shocked that this was possible. That I was playing this as a video game, because I hadn't seen anything to that level anywhere before.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think we're definitely aligned on that one. But it wasn't just the graphics. There were all of these peripherals. There was, we had a modem, so you could play games online in a much better way than with the Netlink. Like, Fantasy Star Online was pretty huge in the college dorms, let me tell you.
Yeah.
And then do you want to talk about some of those peripherals first and what it was like marketing those?
I actually forgot about the keyboard until I saw one out there
Typing
in
the Dead.
museum. I remember Typing the Dead was like my favorite. It just was it felt so good haptically to be typing and hear.
I just bought this game on eBay because I didn't know about it until last week. There is a game called Typing of the Date by Hudson Soft, which is obviously alluding to Typing of the Dead, but it's a dating sim where you can date 3 ladies, and they ask you questions, and you have to type in the correct reply to that to get them to like you more with a typing mini game. As soon as I found out that existed, I was like, well,
I guess I have no choice but to get that. I'm feeling like Sega had something weird too at the time called the Love Getty. Does anybody know what a Love Getty is? It was one of those weird fake girlfriend kind of things. So let's see, peripherals.
Yeah, like the VMU.
Well, so the VMU was the most underutilized. If you want to talk about underutilized things, VMU could have totally changed the game. I was talking with Scott Hawkins, who was one of the producers at Sega at the time, and he always had this passion project he was working on called Sega Swirl, and there was talk of, having the VMU removable and playing it, as a game, just like a little pocket game, whatever. But other than that, it seems like so little was done with that. I did some research and I found out there have been a couple, and you pointed out a couple of games that came out for VMU, but I feel like it could have been so much more powerful, so much better utilized. There was obviously the maracas. I remember we had this big conversation in our production meetings, in our software lineup meetings about, do we bring the maracas to the States or do we not? We released, I think, 3,000 pairs of maracas in the entire United States. But it was one of those things where, you know, if we are who we say we are, we have got to release the maracas. So we are not who we say we are if we don't. Same thing with Seaman. And like the cost of creating that microphone for, you know, really one hit. I don't know if anything else used that microphone.
I don't know. I think maybe nothing else did.
Yeah.
I mean, there was a second version of Seaman in Japan, so I guess you could say two things, but that's all I can think of. Yeah. Just to go back to the VMU thing for a minute, like there were some games on there, and a lot of Dreamcast games had mini games that you could download onto the VMU and play separately. Like you could level up your Chow and stuff.
Chow, yeah.
But people didn't use it as intelligently as they could, and I found out interestingly that it was really the sports games that used it in the best way, because you had your own tiny screen where you could choose your plays and not let anyone else see it, which was, you know, a pretty pioneering second screen experience, like a DS or whatever.
Yeah, and moving forward to now, where you're playing a game and you have your iPhone as your second screen.
Right.
VMU basically was that back then, but not kind of fully realized, I think. But that's the thing about Sega, right? Sega is always on the leading edge, so they took the arrows. I mean, there are so many things that they did that other people didn't do. Both to their credit, you know, probably ultimately to their demise, but you have to respect all the things that they did.
Yeah, absolutely. There are so many innovations, and like the maracas, it is often rumored, are what led to the Wii.
Did you know you can play Sega Rally with maracas?
I didn't, but I'm going to try that now, because I do have, I got the set. I'm one of those 3,000 apparently. So, I was just interviewing for a 20th anniversary project that I'm doing. I was interviewing the character designer of Samba de Amigo, which is what the maracas were made for. And he used to work at Nintendo, and he was one of the people really pushing this idea. And when he saw how popular it was, he was super happy and gratified, because, as you were mentioning earlier, before this panel, it was just all over the Japanese arcade.
Yeah.
It was everywhere. And
walking down alleys, you would just hear that Spice of Life or Slice of, whatever that song is from that.
And when he heard that the maracas might have been the inspiration for the Wii remote, he was like, actually, I should have stayed at Nintendo. Because he used to work there. But Seaman, so what was your reaction when you saw Seaman? Saito is a friend of mine. He's an interesting fellow. He's always
very interesting.
He's always like, what if we do this?
Yeah.
How do we make this work? He loves AI. He's super into figuring out. He was trying to make this sort of neural network kind of communication thing that could understand nuance of spoken tone. So like,
well, Seaman would say, you sound angry at me.
Right. So like, why are you here? Or why are you here? Yeah. Or why are you here? Those kinds of nuances, he wanted to be able to understand those from speech to a computer kind of thing. That's something he's been working on recently. But all the way back to Seaman, he's doing this kind of stuff. So yeah, when you saw it, were you like, I know how to market this? Or were you like, what is this?
What crap in hell did we do with this?
Yeah.
You know, that was another one where it was like only Sega, only Sega at that time would do that. It was so unique, I don't even know how many copies of it sold in the United States. Probably not a ton. I kept on having to go on media tour, and I would come back to my Seaman floating dead upside down in my office. I'd actually have to be like, can somebody go feed man, please? There was actually a story out of Japan like 2 weeks ago of some Japanese businessman who was friends with a fish, and he would go visit the fish like all the time. Shit you not, this fish looks exactly like Steve. It's a legitimate. I was like, oh my God, he is real, and there he is.
That's great. Yu Saito is actually the voice of Steve in Japan. He did the voice himself, which I've never knows that.
I don't know who would have done it in the United States. If there's any localization people in the other.
It's a guy called Jeff Kramer.
Okay.
I know that because he, Jeff? I think it's Jeff. Anyway, he later became the voice of Agent York in Deadly Premonition, which was made by another friend of mine, and it was a fantastic performance. And I was looking up what other stuff he did. See, man. So, and he's actually a local. He lives around this general area.
Yeah, we did all the voiceovers. So Space Channel 5 we talked about earlier, pretty much everybody at Sega of America, you were, I'm sure, there. The sound studio is right next door, basically to 650 Townsend, where our offices were. And so we brought basically all the Sega people over to voice Space Channel 5 stuff, like being the Merodians and, cheering and all that kind of stuff.
That reminds me that the Space Channel 5, one of the producers, what's the last name is like Okamine or something? No, Mineko. She is the voice of Ulala as well. She was just in the office and she had a nice voice, so she became Ulala.
I don't think Ulala said too much, did she?
She said shoot,
yeah.
And she said up, down.
Yeah.
But she would also introduce, she would be like, all right, everybody, it's time for the news. Let's do this thing. So she had some.
Yeah.
Smile Bit. So Jet Set Radio, that was like, these days the kids are listening to lo-fi beats to study/relax to. But, Jet Set Radio was way ahead on that. And it almost felt like it introduced a bunch of kids who were like maybe nerdy video game kids to something that felt cool, that like you could be a part of this cool thing, and you like suddenly it's like you could have taste.
Yeah.
And it had this unique visual style. They had it was like graffiti and inline skating and stuff. So what was that all about? Promoting this and
so Jet Set Radio in Japan, Jet Grind Radio in the United States. I think it was a trademark thing that we had to change the name here. We had a partnership with Tommy Boy Records that actually put out the soundtrack. We still have the soundtrack at home. Beastie Boys were involved in that, so they were hanging around the office. Were you involved in that one too? And it holds the record as the game that got me a bodyguard for an entire weekend, because we had a graffiti art contest at the Embarcadero, San Francisco, on the same weekend, ironically, as Mayor Willie Brown's Knock Out the Graffiti initiative got underway. And myself and Gwendolyn Marker started getting really violent and horribly sexual death threats on our voicemail. So I ended up getting a bodyguard for the entire weekend, like literally at the Safeway on 16th and Portrero. Ran into a friend who came up to talk to me. The bodyguard was like suddenly really interested in the broccoli to be next to me, make sure nobody was up. He slept in front of my house. I was like, do you need to come in and use the bathroom? Like, what's your, no, I'm good. I'm like, no, I do. So that was, I think that again, it was Sega saying, you can express yourself in a responsible way. Like, we're having this art contest to give people a safe place to do this kind of art and showcase this kind of art. This isn't about vandalism or whatever. And then Jet Set Radio Future, which was the second one, right?
Right.
I was in New York City at the time working in music marketing. This was after my time at Sega. and I had the opportunity to do some marketing around that one, and we set up in the Beastie Boys shop. Again, though, it was one of those situations where it's like we're promoting this game for this console, but like you can't really get anymore. It was a fun promotion, but again, it was that. What are we really doing with this? Like, where is it?
Is that the one that got you all talking to Snoop Dogg, or was that something else?
No. So Snoop Dogg. So we had quite the cohort of celebrities around us during the time of Sega Dreamcast. We had, so Vern Troyer was kind of our mascot, may he rest in peace. And his rider at the time actually included having a table for him to sit on, set at a certain height, and then he had to have a runner to go get him drinks to come back to the table because he couldn't walk through the crowd. So basically, Vern had his own little pedestal. Snoop Dogg was a huge gamer, and we sent him, I think it was probably Heather Cashner, Kathleen Joyce sent him a Dreamcast early. We were on media tour in New York City, and Chase, who you guys probably know, again, from Twitch, who is on our agency team, is like, there's a tour bus out front. I'm going to go see who it is. So we just see Chase knock on the door of this tour bus. We see the doors open, a big old puff of smoke come out, and then Chase just walks into the tour bus. We're like, what's going on? It's like, it's Snoop Dogg. He had a Dreamcast on his tour bus, and he was in there playing games with Chase like all night long. We're like, Chase, come on, come out of the tour bus. Yeah, Snoop Dogg. You gotta be there for him.
So visual concepts. Can you talk about how big sports were for Sega at the time? Because it like in the Mega Drive era, certainly like Madden and everything was a real big deal. And then going to 2K, it was like Sega Sports stuff. So
yeah.
Sega was taking ownership of the sports branding and just and it really did sell console stuff.
Yeah, I mean, you had to. I mean, I think at the point that EA backed out, they knew that they had to, and they acquired Visual Concepts, right? Greg Thomas came on board. He held an official role inside Sega. So pouring that money into creating 2K was probably actually, is it a curse that EA didn't sign on? Could we talk all day about whether that was like the ultimate death blow? I don't know. But Sega having control of that, especially given the importance of online gaming and the fact that console-enabled online gaming, would EA have done the things with one of their games that Visual Concepts did with NFL 2K or NBA 2K? I still remember Peter Moore, Los Angeles, E3. We were connecting him live to testers back in San Francisco, and he was playing with like some rapper. I don't think it was Snoop. It might have been like Ice-T or somebody like that. And like listening to that modem like do its thing, and we're all just like, come on, like you better connect. But it's like them owning Visual Concepts to be able to do that, to push that internet-enabled thing forward, I think was important to showcase what it could do.
Yeah, and back in those times, like the PlayStation wasn't out at first, and there was almost like a rivalry created now between the Madden games and the 2K games, and we had in college, we had folks like arguing about 2K versus Madden, and that was actually like, it felt like that was good. It was a discussion point because it used to be like Sega or Nintendo or whatever, and it became 2K versus Madden.
Yeah.
And that competition seemed to get people really invested in something.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have any other like funny, weird, strange stories from the launch era that people might not have known about? I guess we've gone through quite a few already.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Yeah, what's yours?
Come on in.
So
You gotta get to the mic.
Hey, what's up, Mark? I remember this because 2K, you were talking about 2K and Madden came out, right? And Madden had an earlier rev. And so all the testers were sent down to demo all of the Dreamcast games in 99. That's right. So my job was actually to go and burn all these games for all the testers. So we had all of our third parties, so I was part of third party. And then we had the first party games we would show everybody. And so all our testers went to the Madden booth. And because they're all testers, we know how to break games. So they actually crashed their game where they had to actually turn off their systems and reboot them. And we just felt like, that was like a win because we really started so small, like literally from 0 to 100 in like 3 months. And so that's why this group is just so close. You hear us real loud out there, right? Because we were just so close. You won't find that in any other company. And it's not the alcohol talking. But we really did the story that we had was like we would promote everywhere. And I actually went to Heather and I was like, hey, there was this dance, like 18 and up dance in San Francisco called the Booty Hall. It was like a really big thing where girls would get like freaky and everything on stage. But I had to sell it to her. So I was like, hey, I need some Dreamcast, some games, and some banners. What's up? And she was like, you know what? How many people are showing up? It's like about 5,000 people. It's like, you got it. And I went there and girls shook their booty on stage and they gave out Dreamcast. And they were like, yeah, I want a Dreamcast. It's pretty cool. We threw out games in the crowd. And it was awesome. But anyways, we did break that Madden game. And it was like just a big win for us, because we were like fighting against EA and all that stuff. We're just like, we only had Soul Calibur. That was the only thing that we had. They started, like third-party games was tough because we weren't getting supported much. I mean, they were just like, here's Soul Calibur, and now we want you to go and put out all our arcade hits like Pac-Man and all this other stuff.
There's a lot of just because of the ease of porting games. There was a big issue with people just saying we're just going to straight port it. So that was a big thing that we tried to do is say, if you want to come on this platform, you have to use the VMU or you have to use the modem. Like, I don't care if you're just downloading a new skin or a new background, or like you have to do something to make it not the PC version.
Yeah,
right?
We were literally begging people. Like, I think our first network game was Railroad Tycoon.
Would that be the first?
I think so. I mean, I remember we had those things plugged in, and we're just like hoping to God that it was just like these work, like you're connecting all the things together. And I just remember it was just, it worked. And it was like the first time they would communicate with each other well, I think it was, I'm sure it was Railroad Tycoon. And then later on, it was like more, we got into like Fantasy Star and all that stuff, right? It was already more refined. But I remember specifically those network games. We're just like, you gotta get it working, and we were all begging for the fast connection. But it was all about that 56 coming out first. Anyways, sorry to disrupt your thing, but that was a great story. We was like, but we really did from this small of a company and blow up, and we were successful in the U.S. We really were successful in the U.S.
Yeah.
We were an awesome team, and like big shout out to Neil. I know you're not here. We miss you. Just the head of third party. Love you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, like once that broadband adapter came around, then people were playing PSO like everywhere. Fantasy Star Online. Were you involved with the marketing of that at all?
Yeah, Fantasy Star Online came out when I was at Sega. And it was one of those. So here's the thing, video game industry, RPGs always end up being, the sell-through is not quite as much. So they end up being really, really important to the people that really, really care about them, but not on the level of like Sonic. We knew that it wasn't going to sell units. The people that would be interested in that game probably already would have had a unit. So it did get support. I feel like it got at least one, if not two magazine covers because people cared about it, were looking forward to it. But, not on the level of a Space Channel 5.
Yeah. That was the first thing that I looked at and I was like, maybe I should get that broadband adapter and get that figured out.
Yeah.
So I don't want to get too far into talking about the console's demise because I mostly want to keep it like about its life and happy legacy. But was there anything that you were wanting to still do, and then the life was cut off? But was there anything you were sort of looking forward to with that console and moving it forward at the time?
I feel like at the time that it was discontinued, I feel like we were at a plateau, kind of. There were obviously games, Res and other games, down the pipe. I'm trying to think. Shenmue had come out. When did Shenmue come? It was supposed to be a launch title. It wasn't a launch title.
No, it came out in 2000, I think, and then
okay,
Shenmue
so Shenmue
2
was out.
was right before or right after the end of the Dreamcast, something like that. So those two did come out,
Yeah, I mean, I can't think of anything that we didn't get to do. It was heady times. It was crazy. Like, that year was exhausting. I remember the morning of 9/9/99, I was downstairs in some casino in Las Vegas with Simon Cox, who's the editor-in-chief of Sega Dreamcast magazine, official Sega Dreamcast magazine, playing video poker. And all of a sudden I was like, crap, I need to go be on Morning Edition. In 5 minutes, I ran upstairs to my hotel room. I was on NPR. My mom called. That's awesome. And I was like, I'm kind of tired. So if I start rambling, and finally they're like, okay, Heather, we're gonna let you go get some sleep. But I mean, it was like that for basically that entire year surrounding launch. And I feel like at the time that Dreamcast, was discontinued, I remember very well the couple of weeks. I mean, I knew something was brewing. I was protected a little bit because I was the voice and the face of Dreamcast to the gaming community. So Charlie shielded me a little bit. But I walked into his office and pulled something. Fax machines. What is up with fax machines back then? I pulled something off the fax machine that was Sonic the Hedgehog high-fiving Mario. And I was like, Charlie, what the fuck is that? And at that point, kind of got pulled into what was going on. But, I remember, I think it was Tom Russo called me on my office line and was like, Heather, the next word you say can only be yes or no. Is Sega discontinuing Dreamcast? Well, Tom, Sega's very committed to the, support of it. Heather, you can only say yes or no. So I think I put him on hold, went running into Charlie's office, and never picked the phone back up.
Good idea.
Yeah, but it's like, during those times, it's like, what do you do? What are you going to say? How do you deal with it? We had, burned people multiple times, and we said, trust us, come on board, trust us again. And they did, and then it happened again. But again, my job was United States, Sega Dreamcast, Sega of America. My job was not manager of worldwide fiscal implications for a Tokyo Stock Exchange traded company. So I can be very idealistic about it. And I can say, my hair might have been blue, but I bled orange. And, the morning after we made the announcement, February 1st, I think, 2001, I had a 9 o'clock meeting with the president of Sega of Japan. It wasn't Okawa-san, it was some other mucky muck from Sega of Japan, and a team of people from Sega of Japan. I walked in, hungover as hell, probably legally still drunk, wearing all black and a Dreamcast t-shirt because that was, I wanted them to know, I felt like it was my job to let them know how much it mattered to people, and that there were people that still cared. So those times were, up and down, but the support of gamers coming around us, the support of people, the fact that you guys are all still here today, and the fact that Made agreed to do this, and you're here and that Mike's here. And again, are they doing this in Japan? No. Are they doing this in Europe? No. It means something.
Yeah, in my trying to get an article together for all the devs giving their thoughts about the Dreamcast 20 years later, one of the big things that came back from all the Japanese game developers was, I really wish we could all get together and have a conversation. So I'm gonna try to set that up for them next year. It won't be the 20th anniversary, but whatever.
It's cool. It's cool that the Japanese, I feel like we had a really great relationship with the Japanese developers, like on an interpersonal level. Like I think about Mizuguchi-san, I think about people like that, where it's like beyond that very formal, Japanese hierarchy exchange of information. Like I feel like they sensed a breath of fresh air in the United States because we were the people saying, do the crazy thing. Like we will put out your insane freaking talk and fish game. And, we'll put all this money into this peripheral, that's really just going to collect dust. So I think that I
did sell pretty well, C-Man.
You did?
Yeah.
I should have pulled some numbers.
In large part, probably thanks to your efforts, because Yuki Saito has said that he always appreciates how much Sega pushed it because it actually did make its money back.
We had a television, we had a TV ad for C-Man, right?
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
So he was very appreciative of it.
Yeah.
And it actually did sell pretty well. I guess if anyone else has some questions that they want to think up in a moment, I'll just ask, like, you've really touched on a lot of this, but what is your just sort of overarching feeling about the Dreamcast 20 years later, and the fact that it is 20 years later and we're talking about it and anyone cares?
Yeah.
And all this stuff. I mean, I love the console. I think that it, like I said earlier, it has that like amazing creative energy. It has like a buzzing energy of let's try something to it. And it's a great pioneering spirit.
Everybody loves the underdog. I have a couple thoughts on that. Number one, I want to say if it had lasted 3 years, 4 years, would we be here today? Does it have a little bit of a Kurt Cobain, burn out before you fade away type of a thing going on? Probably. Again, nobody's out there celebrating the launch of
PS2 or whatever.
PS2 or whatever. So I do think it gets to live for us forever in that unrealized potential kind of a way. I also want to say never before, never since have I had such a team experience where, again, everybody was aligned and, just intrinsically motivated and giving their all. Like, I can tell you there was one time I had to sit down somebody on the marketing team and say, dude, you're not giving me what I need you to give me. What is going on? I need you to, and turns out he was having personal problems. He broke down in tears. I broke down in tears. We hugged it out. We went to Mars Bar for a drink. And that was literally the only time that there was a, come on, help me out. And we all have had work experiences. We know that is so, so rare. I want to say that I will always be here. I feel like it's my responsibility to carry this flag. Literally, I'm looking at the banner that I keep in my garage that I brought here that Peter Bourne gifted me 10 years ago. It is my job, my responsibility to people who aren't here with us today. So I do want to take a second just to.
About Charlie?
Sorry.
Okay.
So, Charlie Belfield, who's not here with us anymore, he loved this system and he was, the best boss. He was my air cover. He was the guy who protected me from, when gamers would get up. Gamers can get up in arms, you guys. You might not know this. They can get a little tough to handle. But this morning, so I live in Truckee, California now. I was on a run and I was thinking about Charlie. and I looked down and I found this heart shape. So he's here, you know, he's here with us. Youth Saito, obviously not with us anymore.
Kenji.
I'm sorry, Kenji, not with us anymore. And also Robert Leffler, who was in the licensing group, just all those people who really made it happen. Just want to say, I will always be here for those people and for all the gamers that trusted us, all the gamers who gave us their $199, $99, $49, all the way until all that inventory sold through. And the fact I still get contacted. I mean, I've gotten recognized on the street, when I was in New York City, I walked into a meeting, and this was like a year and a half after the layoff and everything. Somebody was like, "You're Heather Hawkins." I'm like, "Yeah." Walking into Tower Records on Market Street, somebody's like, "You were in Next Generation magazine." I'm like, "Who reads Next Generation magazine?"
Tom Russo.
Yeah, well, Tom Russo, definitely. His stories about Tom Russo.
I have stories about Tom Russo. I have to work with him now.
Yeah, you work with him?
Sometimes.
Tell him I said hi. I like him. He's one of my favorites.
I will. Once I'm done being mad at him, I'll say hi.
Okay. But anyhow, I will be here as long as you guys are here. And I'm so happy that Mike put this together, that the maid agreed to have us here. I will be here for as long as I can carry the banner, for as long as I can remember the stories, because again, the brain cells from back then, they were heady times.
So, yeah.
I was wondering if you could say anything about the Sega EA relationship, and do you know about the black belt system?
The question was about the Sega EA, right?
Doral is black belt, right?
Sega EA relationship and the black belt / Doral. Well, I thought Doral was also.
Doral was also an arcade board.
Doral was the code name for the Naomi board, right?
There was another machine.
Yeah. Well, I thought that Doral was just another name for Dreamcast, for what became Dreamcast.
No, yeah, this was an American alternative.
Oh, so there was like an American arcade board.
There was an American development team that was working on.
So they kind of made two systems at the same time, and Dreamcast went out. Yeah, I have never.
It was
Oh, are you talking about the thing that was like a potential competitor to the Dreamcast?
Exactly.
Oh, I think we actually have Neil on.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Neil says EA was fully on board for the Doral.
I see.
I wonder why. Do you know why? Why for Doral but not for Dreamcast?
Maybe because it was. I remember EA had some. They were upset about the Windows CE architecture, if I recall
Yeah, do
correctly.
you remember the 3DFX chip?
Yeah, the 3DFX chip.
Yeah, that was the one that was used in the black belt. We were using the black belt.
Oh, you guys, I almost completely forgot.
Oh, I was gonna wait till after any questions happen.
Oh.
We can do it now. No? Okay, we'll do it.
Hey, Sega people in the other room, you might want to come in here.
Hey, Sega folks.
We're calling in some Sega people because we have a little.
So Neil says EA could easily port their games. Doral was more PC-like, so EA could get their games on there easier. Yeah.
I'll hold this
Yeah,
part.
Neil's actually on chat, but I have a special message for everybody. So there's somebody else who's very important to the launch of Sega Dreamcast who also cannot be here today, but.
Theater, John.
Yep, hang on. What's going on here? What's with tech issues today?
Yeah, we're having a lot of hard times.
Oh, in my imagination, this went so much easier.
Wait, I can play it. Oh, you got it. At the bottom.
Oh, for crying out loud.
Here, let me get it. Are you guys using Zoom? I got it.
You got it?
Yeah. Okay.
We can't see that.
20 years ago.
It's just a video.
Distant memories that we all shared, those great times, the great people, the challenges of what we needed to do to keep that wonderful console alive, the support we got from so many people around the world, from publishers to hardware manufacturers, and of course the community. I still think fondly of those days. I still talk about those days. And so I wish I could be there, but I've got a football team to run. Have a great time. It's wonderful to be able to relive some of those memories. I'm doing a bunch of interviews alongside the 20th anniversary right now. And let's not forget what that wonderful, wonderful console was able to deliver during those days and what we all take for granted today. Enjoy.
So Neil says it's because the Doral was more PC-like, so EA could, it was easier basically for them to develop and port games, again with the porting over to Doral. So I guess we're gonna.
I talked to Bing Gordon some time ago, and he told me that it was an issue of they didn't like the chipset that was being used, and especially in the Saturn. And Sega told EA, next time we're gonna ask you first, and they did, and then they didn't do what EA wanted because it was Sega Japan that made the decision, and so EA was like, "Screw you then. Sony's making a console too. We don't care." And so that's, as far as I understand, that's what happened between EA and Sega.
Well, it was basically a battle between Hitachi chipset and 3DFX chipset.
Yeah, it was a chipset battle.
Yeah, and I'm actually remembering now that it was Tom Russo who.
Tom Russo.
Frickin' Tom Russo sat me and Charlie down and was like, "You cannot tell me that Microsoft is not developing its own console because I saw it." And we were like, "All right, Tom Russo."
And now Chris Chila is working there at Microsoft. So.
Oh, is he?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Microsoft was on the side of the block.
Yeah, they were ready to get in there. Alex, you have a question?
Yes, we have a number of really cool PR and marketing things from the Dreamcast launch, like the Steam tin.
Oh, awesome.
And the lunchbox.
No, we didn't show any of that stuff.
Oh, sweet.
We have some other assets. I'm just wondering if you can comment on so there's a lot of wacky ideas.
Oh, yeah.
Do you remember any of it was rejected?
Are you talking about for PR stuff?
Yeah.
No, I can't.
The question was about whether there were any wacky PR ideas.
PR ideas that were rejected. I can think of very, very, very few things that we said no to. Little known fact, the folder for E3, the first year we were showing Dreamcast behind closed doors, has Braille on the side of it. And if you actually do the Braille, it says "Stop or You'll Go Blind" on the side of it. I mean, we did. I can think of very, very few things that anyone would have said no to during that time. Peter Moore especially was like, go for it. I trust you guys. But a lot of those ideas actually came from our PR agency. I remember one that was probably a bad idea.
Which agency?
Access Communications. Oh, sweet. Love it. So Access Communications, great agency. I got my start there. It's kind of how I ended up sitting here. So thank you, Susan Butenhoff and team. For NFL 2K, we bought a bunch of jock straps. We had somebody take them to their house here in Oakland, I think, and basically run them over in the driveway and scruffle them in the grass and get them all like really horrible, dirty. Send them out to all the video gaming magazines, and I got I think like 3 phone calls from people that were like, "Heather, I opened that package you sent, and now my keyboard is ruined." Like the dirt, it's like, well.
And there's some people that happened to.
Yeah. Those were the fun days. But again, that's the level. We did not have a manufacturing house. We did not have a production facility putting fake dirt and fake jock straps. literally were driving them
Real
over
dirt,
with
real
cars.
just drive.
Yeah.
Other questions?
Yeah.
Yes, back there.
Hey, so I'm from the UK and I had a Dreamcast. And
Yeah.
I'm like the
Sorry.
only person I know who like remembers that it existed.
Yeah.
So can you speak a little bit to the difference between like the European and like the American market?
So the question is about the European and American market and why Europe didn't quite hold up its end PR-wise. It's weird because the Mega Drive was so strong in the UK for so long. So and the Saturn was fine.
Yeah.
So what happened?
I don't know, and I think that goes back to just that level of disconnect where it's like, you guys, like, do what we're doing, do some of this stuff, like, come on. I remember going over to London around Christmas time. It must have been Christmas time, right after the system came out. Walking into their office was just like, where's the life? Where's the energy? Like, what's going on here? What's happening here?
Why is your swirl blue instead of orange?
Yeah, I think that I heard was
I'm sure it was some sort of it.
I heard it was an
trademark
international trademark thing. Although Peter Moore in interviews has chalked it up to international disconnect and just being like a lack of, like, what did they do in Japan? What did their ads look like in Japan versus like, what was the magic that we made in the United States that didn't carry over? I mean, we had a soccer title for Dreamcast, yeah. What was it that didn't happen in the UK that did happen? I don't know, except for that I would just say that feeling of energy, it just wasn't palpable there, whereas in the United States, it was absolutely. And I know Jim was head of PR for the UK at the time of the launch of Sega Dreamcast, and he was a great guy, knew what he was doing, knew his stuff, but I don't know that I have too much to know about that one.
We just got dropped some interesting PR items.
Here's our Seaman of the Sea can of Seaman.
Safety first. Seaman of the Sea has led the way in canned food processing.
Oh my God! I would have owed them like $50,000. What's the going rate on eBay for that? This is cool. I don't remember this.
Let me hold it up.
I don't remember this.
Space Channel 5
Lunchbox.
Open.
There's all sorts. Open it up. This is obviously somebody who worked in Sega marketing, donated a bunch of stuff here.
I remember the magnet.
There's one of the shirts.
Oh my God, it's VHS tape, you guys.
Yeah. Right?
So awesome.
I'm ready to watch it.
You got the microphone ready?
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk. Ready? It has the original gummy worms.
Oh my God, it has the original gummy worms inside, and they still look fresh as the day they were.
Unfortunate.
Awesome.
We got some more.
Oh, Crazy Taxi. Who remembers that?
Alex, hand it over to me so I can put it in front of the camera.
Yeah.
I want that Crazy Taxi.
There we have
Well, there's another
NHL, NBA, tennis. I remember that tennis game.
Sports. Crazy
Yeah.
Taxi.
Crazy Taxi.
What you may want to do, this is actually some crazy stuff. You might want to just pop this out. Those are some like mock-ups of your ads and stuff. Like production stuff.
Ooh la la.
There she is, our girl. Oh my gosh, what is this? It looks like a burger box from Mel's Drive-In.
Oh, this looks like it's some sort of a it's a Crazy Taxi.
Shelf.
I
So
think
this was
it's
probably
it's
made
like
by
papercraft.
retail.
Yeah, it's a papercraft thing, so you can make but it might have been a retail.
So I don't think the PR. This was the sales.
Yeah.
And then there's a bunch of the box artwork.
Sonic 2 box proofs. I mean, Sonic Adventure 2. It's very smooth.
That's awesome. NBA.
NBA 2K1.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess it's box proofs.
Yeah.
Nice.
Oh, that's cool.
A bunch of marketing
Let
stuff.
me remember all
I
those.
hope somebody has those digital images somewhere still.
I don't know, man. Probably on what 3x3 floppy.
Yeah. Well, if they got it, send it to Frank Scaldi at the Video Game History Foundation.
That's awesome.
All right. Well, I think. Oh, you got a question back there? Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Did we do the same thing with Nintendo? Yeah, I feel like we did. I'm trying to think. I think so. Sony's in our backyard, right? Nintendo's all the way up there in Seattle or Washington. So it was just easier, I think, to compete with Sony because Sony had Metreon, made it, rest in peace. That was another project that I was involved with that maybe I shouldn't be talking about.
Sega was briefly involved with the Metreon after the Sony stuff. There was some weird like Sonic walkway that.
Oh no, that was Walk a Game. That was my project, my friend. Well, I was involved in it. It was so Sonic the Hedgehog got a star on the Walk a Game,
Right. Okay,
and then the Walk of Game promptly got ripped out and turned into a Target.
So we actually might have met earlier because I was there on the opening of the Walk of
I was
Fame.
there. We have met.
Okay.
Look at that. So I think it was just easier, the Sony rivalry. Also, Sony was about to come out with PlayStation 2, so I think it was just like a natural thing to like have that rivalry since we were in each other's backyard. It was just an easy thing to do. I can't think of any times that we really specifically took on Nintendo, but I'm sure that we did.
Everybody already knows. Yes. Sega Genesis does with Nintendo.
What Nintendo? Yeah, that was
A couple generations earlier.
Yeah.
Everybody already
No,
knew
I
that
was sadder.
Genesis does with
another
Nintendo.
sale.
Just kept that feeling. We already knew.
Yeah.
Great. Well, thanks everybody for coming. Thanks.
Thank
for the
you.
people
Thank
watching.
you guys. Thank you, Neil, for joining us. It was great to have you here. Yeah.
Thank you, Heather and Brendan. Thank you so much for everybody who came out. I just want to be very clear about the museum's mission is that the people who made these games and created these systems and worked in this stuff are the reason this museum exists. We would not be here showing off games if people didn't make games. And we try very hard to show that there are human beings behind these games and people who worked on them. So if there's anybody here who worked on the Dreamcast who hasn't signed this yet, please take a chance to sign it. And thank you so much for coming out, all of our everybody in the audience, and thank you everybody who worked on the systems and at Sega, and thank you for coming out and spending your time here to share with us your memories. And thank you, Mike Spiegelman. Thank you, Mike Spiegelman. If you've got some thank yous, please go ahead.
I just thank all of you guys. I think everybody who remembers. I even thank the idiot fiction fanboys that still hit me up on Facebook and Twitter and like give me crap about stuff like 20 years later. Because the fact that they do just means that they cared and that it meant as much to you guys as it did to the entire team in-house at Sega. And I know that I speak for everybody who was involved in Dreamcast. Just to say heartfelt thank you. You know, this is proof that we kicked ass and we did a great thing. So thank you. See you guys in another 5 or 10 years.
Yeah, thanks everyone.
Yeah.